Here today to announce a major update in an important case. Abrego Garcia has landed in the United States to face justice. On May 21st, a grand jury in the Middle District of Tennessee returned a sealed indictment.
Georgetown University law professor Emily Chertoff says his case now symbolizes President Donald Trump's tough U.S. immigration crackdown.
I think that given how much this is a symbol,
Charging Abrego Garcia with alien smuggling and conspiracy to commit alien smuggling in violation of Title 8 U.S.C. 1324.
is a particular case. I think that this administration is very unlikely to just let him stay in the United States.
Imagine being illegally deported by the government, only to be brought back and indicted on charges that make no sense. Now, picture a federal judge stepping in, flipping the script, and making the Trump administration follow the actual law for once. This is the jaw-dropping story of Armando Abrego Garcia and the epic courtroom showdown. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. What do you call it when a federal judge flips the government's own playbook against them? A legal mic drop moment, and that's exactly what happened in Judge Holmes' courtroom. Picture this. Armando Abrego Garcia was deported under the Trump administration's strict immigration policies. But hold on, here's where it gets weird. The very same administration that pushed him out of the country pulled him back in.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been returned to the United States. Trump's Department of Justice has filed charges against him, accusing him of human smuggling. Now, what's fascinating about this story is that the star witness for Abrego Garcia's trial.
The only way, candidly, I could see that happening is if it stops being an object of media attention. I think the best thing that could happen for Mr. Abrego Garcia is that, like, everybody forgets that this case has happened.
Is a 3-time felon who received a sweetheart deal as long as he testifies against Abrego Garcia. I'm not kidding. So get a load of this 3-time felon.
And it's not actually like a symbolic fight for the administration anymore. And so there's no real reason for them to continue trying to deport him so vigorously.
Why? Not to apologize for an illegal deportation, but to slap him with human smuggling charges. You can almost hear the circus music playing in the background of this flip-flop. Here's where the stakes get real. By charging Garcia and bringing him back into the US, the government needed him to stand trial, but at the same time, they were gearing up to deport him again, fast. And that's not just a logistical nightmare. It's a legal minefield. If Garcia got deported before his hearing, federal courts would lose jurisdiction over the case, essentially giving the administration a free pass to bury their mistake with zero accountability. Think of it like booting the referee out of a game. You can't lose if no one's watching. Enter Judge Holmes. With surgical precision, she saw right through the game. To block the administration from yanking Garcia out of the country mid-trial, she ordered a temporary halt on his deportation, but she didn't stop there. She took it a step further, placing him in detention under conditions so specific it boxed the DOJ into playing by her rules. This wasn't a quick fix, it was a masterstroke, like Holmes was playing chess while the DOJ fumbled over checkers. Then came the twist of irony. Garcia, the guy the administration accused of human smuggling, was now arguing to stay in detention. Why? Because freedom meant being whisked away to another country without due process. Holmes used that desperation against the government, forcing them to agree to keep him detained, ensuring the court kept control of the case. This wasn't just about one man's legal limbo. It became a showdown over the very balance of power between the executive branch and the judiciary.
Remember, Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. It was an administrative error, as Trump administration lawyers admitted in court filings. They're apparently so embarrassed by their mistake.
When in the end, like from an enforcement numbers perspective, he's one person, and there are probably better uses from their perspective of enforcement resources. But again, I think that because of the kind of
like on a witch hunt to find Abrego Garcia guilty of human smuggling, And in order to do so, they are essentially releasing a human smuggler and someone who has drunkenly shot into a neighborhood.
Symbolism this has taken on in the public imagination and the share of public attention this has commanded. I think because of that, it is unlikely that there's going to be an outcome where he.
But how did it all get to this point? Let's backtrack and see where it began. Imagine deporting someone only to realize the move was so illegal you had to scramble to fix it. That's where the Trump administration found itself with Armando Abrego Garcia. They shoved him out of the country to El Salvador without following any of the proper legal steps. And here's the kicker. This wasn't just a bureaucratic slip-up. It was a clear violation of Garcia's constitutional rights that forced the federal court to step in and clean up the mess. Now, how do you fix a blunder that big? Well, in this case, the administration tried dragging Garcia back to the US, but not because they suddenly discovered justice. Nope, they needed to cook up some charges to retroactively justify their actions. So Garcia gets charged with human smuggling, and just like that, the government thought they'd covered their tracks. But here's where it gets absurd. They were effectively trying to rewrite the rules mid-game. Deport first, figure out the legalities later. Of course, the court wasn't buying it, and then we get to the wild part, the administration's forked tongue tactics. On one hand, they argued Garcia needed to be deported immediately. On the other, they insisted he had to stick around so they could prosecute him.
Releasing him out into the public just so they can catch Abrego Garcia committing a crime.
See, this is a perfect example of Donald Trump's ego, right? Because he's got to be right about Abrego Garcia. So if he actually cared about the issues, and if you're right-wing or you're MAGA,
like what order they'll do the immigration case in, but they have control over the timing of the immigration case. So they can decide, they're gonna bring charges, they have more control over how that gets calendared.
Or you voted for Trump in any way, you should be furious about this. Because what do you want? You don't want undocumented criminals in the country, right? Not only is he a 3-time felon, he's crossed the border 6 times already.
A very aggressive job enforcing immigration law, and it's become a symbol of that both for the administration itself and for opponents of the administration's immigration policies.
Which is it? Deport the man or put him on trial? Garcia was so desperate to avoid being thrown into this endless loop that he begged to stay in federal detention. Think about that for a second. This man, accused of human smuggling, was asking to stay behind bars because being free meant instant deportation without due process. Judge Holmes saw right through it. She used their contradictions against them and ensured Garcia's detention came with fair conditions, like access to his lawyers and protections from mistreatment. This wasn't just about helping Garcia, it was about stopping the administration's reckless approach to immigration law. When the government admitted they'd illegally removed Garcia and then brought him back to convict him, it said everything. This wasn't about justice, it was about controlling the narrative. But what does this chaos say about the fight between the courts and top government officials? That's the real story. Judge Holmes didn't just block the Trump administration from bulldozing over one man's rights. She made a stand for something bigger, the rule of law. Her decision wasn't about picking sides. It was about making sure that due process wasn't tossed aside like a crumpled memo. As Michael Popach aptly said, it's about the rule of law, it's about due process, it's about constitutional rights. When government overreach meets strong judicial oversight, it's a reminder that chaos doesn't get the final say. The bigger question is how these legal landmines will challenge future administrations. Something tells me this isn't the end.